Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to NoDQ&A video right here on youtube.com/NoDQCW. And as always, NoDQ.com, your source for the very latest in WWE and TNA. You can check out NoDQ.com for all the latest regarding TNA Genesis coming up, as well as the 2013 Royal Rumble. With that being said, let's get right down to your questions. This first one comes from Anti-Stress Kid. Hi, Aaron. With Alberto Del Rio running over Santa on Raw, do you think his face turn is only a hoax? I think that the plan in WWE is to have Alberto Del Rio as a babyface. I think that the whole deal with him running over Santa on Raw was done because Raw was a throwaway show. They were just looking for somebody to have run over Santa and do that whole storyline, and for whatever reason, they went with Del Rio despite the fact that they turned him babyface a week earlier. So yeah, it is kind of mind-boggling why they would do that, but definitely with the way things went on Raw and the future plans, it does look like Alberto Del Rio will in fact be a babyface moving forward. But yeah, it's confusing, and not really sure what they were thinking when they did that whole angle on the Christmas Eve Raw, other than the fact that they felt it was a throwaway show and that it didn't really, count. They could just do whatever and then next week go back to what their plans were. So, I mean, that's really the only logical reason I can give you as to why they did that. This one comes from The Practical. Hey, Aaron, WWE got lucky not to do CM Punk versus Ryback at TLC, but why are they doing the match anyway? Everyone knows that CM Punk will win because of the Shield. The reason that they initially went with doing CM Punk versus Ryback for the first Raw 2013 is obviously the ratings. WWE really wants to be able to start off 2013 on a high note and get the ratings back up. The ratings were atrocious for the Christmas Eve Raw, but a lot of people expected that going in, and that's why they pretty much did a throwaway show. They're really looking to get the ratings up, and that's why they announced the match. But yeah, there's definitely an issue. I mean, are you really going to have Ryback lose to CM Punk 3 times in a row? And that was the big question for TLC, and WWE actually was able to get away from that. But now they're doing that match. But then again, they might not be doing that match. I mean, on Raw this week, the New Year's Eve Raw, they did the tease with Vince McMahon coming out and saying that if CM Punk's not cleared to wrestle, then Ryback will end up facing Paul Heyman. So it does seem like WWE is trying to figure out a way to draw interest to Raw this Monday and not necessarily have to commit to doing CM Punk versus Ryback one more time. So I think it also gives the creative team more time to think about what they want to do. I mean, because of this whole thing with Paul Heyman and Ryback, WWE now has time to think about what they want to do, and they could wait to the very last minute to make a decision. Monday morning they could finally come up with a solution, and I think that it would probably be better at this point to say CM Punk is still hurt and just go with Ryback versus Paul Heyman, because yeah, if you do CM Punk versus Ryback again, everyone's going to expect some sort of screwy finish, with the Shield or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, it is a cop-out to do Ryback versus Heyman, but at this point, I think that that's the best way to go. This is from Young EZ. Hey, Aaron, how much longer do you think WWE is going to have Big E Langston get the best of John Cena? Will he get his payback directly against him in the form of the match with Ziggler? As I mentioned in previous videos, WWE is really trying to focus on pushing young talent. They're bringing in a lot of new people, and Big E Langston is one of the guys that WWE is very high on. How long will that push happen? That remains to be seen. We've seen time and time again where WWE pushes a guy, and then 6 months later they give up on him, and he's just a comedy mid-card act, and then they release him or just let him go or whatever. But they do see a lot in him, and he's got the size, and I think he'll get a good chance in WWE. But as we've seen in the past, John Cena has a feud with somebody, and usually in the end, John Cena gets the best of the person he's feuding with. And WWE's made such a huge deal in recent weeks about how 2012 was a terrible year for John Cena. You know, they were playing it up on Raw with Dolph Ziggler, showing all the footage. So it's hard to believe that that John Cena will lose again, especially to somebody like Big E Langston, unless WWE has some sort of storyline where they're going to eventually turn John Cena heel. But we keep thinking that Cena's going to turn heel and he doesn't. So in all likelihood, if the two of them have a match, I think that John Cena will go over. But hopefully Big E Langston becomes a huge star, because WWE could really use a new top-level superstar, and hopefully he's the guy, but there's really no way to know at this point. This one comes from BG Nation. Hey Aaron, if Steve Austin was healthy enough to stay in the WWE, what would have become of him, in your opinion? Well, I'm not Steve Austin, so I can't speak for him, but I think that if he had stayed healthy, I think he would have continued to wrestle for several more years. I don't think he would have been like a Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair, where he would still be wrestling at 50. So I think that if he kept wrestling, I think he almost certainly would have been retired by now. I think he would have gone 3 or 4 or 5 years and then called it a career. I don't see Steve Austin as one of those guys that has the ego and feels he has to keep wrestling. I think he would have just kept going until he felt that he did all there was to do. So maybe a few more years. But I mean, I think, you know, in the period that he was wrestling, you know, even injury or not, I mean, he really did all there was to do in that short period of time. I mean, he was the biggest superstar, arguably, of all time, and he accomplished that in a short period. So, I mean, he did what nobody else has done, or, you know, nobody else might ever be able to do what Steve Austin did. Hey, Aaron, love the show. Please answer on video. Do you think Jerry Lawler should win the WWE or World Heavyweight title before he officially retires from wrestling? From Michael in Wyoming. So should Jerry Lawler win the WWE or World title before he retires? I think that the ship has already sailed on that. If they were going to do that, it should have been done, you know, when Lawler was feuding with The Miz. When The Miz was champion, then Lawler had that match at No Way Out. That would have been a good opportunity to have that moment where Jerry Lawler wins the title, and then he could lose it right back to The Miz or whatever the next night on Raw. But it didn't happen, and at this point, you know, with a heart attack and everything, Jerry Lawler should not be in a WWE ring again. It should not happen, and I know it's a feel-good moment, but not a good idea at all, and I don't think it's going to happen. This one comes from WrestlingFan912. Hey Aaron, I'm not sure if you've answered this before. Why do you think they didn't have the WWE Draft in this year? Do you think that they will have it next year? I was a little bit surprised when they didn't do the draft, because usually the draft creates a bump in the ratings, and it is like a 1 week thing that WWE can market and get the numbers up for Raw, and they didn't do it this past year. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that the brand extension is all but dead. You know, the guys are on both shows, and there really isn't much of a brand extension at this point. So I guess WWE felt there really wasn't a need, and people would see through it, and it really wouldn't bump the ratings all that much. So as far as them doing it this year, I think it's unlikely unless WWE gets serious about doing the brand extension again. But there's no indication that they're gonna take the brand extension serious again. So probably not. How come WCW was brought in as being aligned with Shane, who was a babyface at the time? Well, the whole idea was that Shane bought WCW, and he would feud with his father, and he would try to put his father out of business, just like Vince put WCW out of business. But then Shane saved the day and saved WCW from going under. So you know, and they were already feuding. They had their match at WrestleMania, and yeah, the WCW was by having Shane align with WCW, you know, that would get WCW over with the WWE fans, because Shane was a babyface, and, you know, people would see it as a new beginning for WCW, that, you know, Shane is not like his father, he's a good guy, and he's going to make WCW something special, and it would be a new beginning for them. But then when the whole Booker T, Buff Bagwell match happened, and WWE decided to change plans, you know, that's when Shane turned back heel, and they did the whole Alliance storyline. This one comes from Deval David 9. Do you think TNA should have a brand extension? They can have the second brand featuring the X Division, and it could have the old TNA feel, like, for example, the six-sided ring. I don't think they should do a brand extension, just for the fact that WWE has already done it, and I just think it's too much for TNA. They don't have any real momentum right now, so I don't think it's a good idea to add more television time to what they already have. If anything, I think they need to get rid of some people and make the roster a little bit smaller so they can focus on a certain group of people. As it is, I already think that there's too many people on the TNA roster now. One could argue because of that you should do a brand extension, but I just don't think that the TNA is hot enough right now to where if you increase television, I don't think more people are going to watch. I think it's just going to tune more people out. So you really need to focus and make the brand. First of all, you need to get one brand over before you try to start a second brand. You know what I mean? TNA really needs to focus on getting their own product over and getting the ratings up for Impact and then getting the pay-per-view buy rates up, improving the house shows, getting more people to the house shows. Once you do that, then you can start talking about expanding the product, adding a second brand or whatever. But until then, focus on what you got at the moment and make that work. All right, that'll wrap it up for this first edition of No DQ&A video for 2013. Please subscribe if you haven't already, youtube.com/NoDQ&AV. Tell a friend about No DQ&A video on Facebook or Twitter. And I will see you this weekend for more No DQ&A video. Thanks for watching.